writings. He did use the word providence, which is a concept that deists share with the Orthodox. But when Washington used the word providence, if he had to use a pronoun afterwards, he always varied between he, she, and it, just to show that he didn't believe in any anthropomorphic. The idea of a god with a penis has always seemed hilarious to me. And now that the feminists are trying to offering us a god with a vagina, that seems equally ridiculous. I'm more inclined to the it school of thought. Any cosmic mind has got to be an it. I can't imagine it being a sexual creature. Well, if God is sexual, what kind of sex life does God have?
Pretty barren, I would imagine, if there's no goddess around to take care of him. Now, let's backtrack for just a second. If this is not a Christian country, we can kind of indicate that the founders of the country were all Masons. So this is more a Masonic country?
Most of them were Masons, yeah. Well, the Constitution has a lot in common with the rules of a Masonic lodge, actually.
And doesn't that get right back to the conspiracy theory of a secret society?
A lot of right-wingers think we have been run by a Masonic conspiracy. One of the theories I trace through this whole book, and has many variations, the theory that the French Revolution was a Masonic conspiracy. Mm-hmm. There are various Masonic lodges that are blamed by different conspiracy theorists. Some think it's Masonry in general. Some think it's just the Grand Orient Lodge of Egyptian Freemasonry. Some want to blame the Grand Orange Lodge of Ireland. It depends on where you look at, what part of the political spectrum you're looking from, which Masons you're most afraid of. I got a lot of friends who are Masons, so I'm not afraid of any of them.
Well, you don't seem to be afraid of much of anything. For a person who's an expert in conspiracies, you're probably the least paranoid person I've ever met. You have all the data, but none of the fear that most everybody else who's involved in conspiracy theories.
Well, my belief is I don't believe in one big conspiracy that runs everything. That seems absurd to me, and there's so much evidence against it. I have more sympathy for theories like Carl Oglesby's Yankee and Cowboy War, where the ruling class is split and at war with itself, or the A. Albionic theory, where the British royal family and the Vatican have been fighting for 300 years, and everything else is the result of these two major conspiracies of the British royal family and the Vatican. But even that seems oversimplified. I prefer to think there's, at minimum, at any given time, there's about 24 conspiracies afoot. Carl Oglesby, the historian, once said, "A multitude of conspiracies contend in the night." And as far as I have been able to discover in all my years of being involved in, more or less unwillingly in this field, I cannot find any proof of any conspiracy that really existed, was really brought into court and convicted, that lasted more than 10 years before everybody double-crossed everybody else and the conspiracy fell apart.
It's more of a conspiracy of stupidity, it seems like, is running the planet.
I think that is the strongest conspiracy on the planet, is the conspiracy of the stupid.
Yeah.
To prevent schools from educating their children, because they want their children to be as dumb as they are, to prevent television from putting anything intelligent on as much as possible. To keep
well, with the exception of this half hour, of course.
Well, of course, yes. Present company excluded.
Well, you're half right. But, but now, are there since you've done massive research on the numerous conspiracy theories, are there certain hallmarks of a good conspiracy? Are there certain things that the best conspiracies have in common, like shadowy historical roots, or a conspiracy to control one particular aspect of life or the mind?
What I have noticed, it's hard to pick a favorite. It depends on whether you want the craziest one or the most plausible one.
I'm just wondering if they have anything in common. Something.
Well, yeah. When you get into the more science fiction type conspiracy theories,
the X-Files type.
Yeah. Well, there are more X-Files type theories around than they've done on X-Files itself. There are so many conspiracy theories about various aliens meddling with us. This goes back to Charles Fort, who in the 1920s wrote a couple of books on that theme. There's all sorts of ideas about who it is, whether they come from Sirius or Zeta Reticuli, whether they're Greys or some other types, and
or all of the above.
And when you get into that literature enough, you find out that it's the most science fiction and futuristic theories are curiously the most medieval. What it comes down to is a battle between good and evil on a cosmological level, with the Earth as just one part of the major. It goes back before Christianity, Zarathustra, who had the Ahriman and Mazda, these two gods who were in perpetual war with each other. And in Christianity, they made the good one God and the bad one the devil. But in Zarathustrianism, you're never quite sure who's the good one or the bad one. You got to make a choice, but you don't know you're choosing correctly. You don't know who's going to win, which I find more interesting. It is. It's more existentialist if you recognize your own uncertainty.
Well, is there a possibility then that some of these science fictional conspiracies, the Philip K. Dick type conspiracies, the X-File type conspiracies that are floating around now, are an upcoming mythology, somehow more related to the emergence of a new mythology in the human mind than they are to actual physical events that are taking place on Earth with physical aliens and physical UFOs?
Well, they're definitely mythology in the Jungian sense. I don't mean to say that they're all false. I don't know enough to say anything is all false. Some of them are so absurd that I can reject them, but some of them are more plausible than others. But they make a mythology in the sense that they give you a cosmic theory that explains everything and gives you a place in the universe and so on. Carl Jung spotted that way back in the 40s. He wrote, 52 I think it was, not the 40s. He wrote a book called Flying Saucers, A Modern Myth of Things Seen in the Skies, in which he predicted this would be the major religion of the second half of the 20th century, and we're more and more moving toward that.
Well, didn't
more and more the extraterrestrials are replacing angels and demons.
Right.
There are good extraterrestrials and bad extraterrestrials. And not only that, but we got the incubi and succubi back too. In the Middle Ages, they had these sex demons that attacked people in their sleep. Now they're extraterrestrials instead of being demons, but they're still attacking people in their sleep.
Still absconding with them, mating with them, probing them, and doing...
Yeah, there's some place in a galaxy far, far away, according to this school of thought, where they get it, whenever they're really high on some really vicious kind of chemical, they suddenly all say, let's go down to Earth and have a go at somebody's butt again, you know.
Take on Whitley Strieber again. It was fun. Didn't Jacques Vallée, the French writer, do a whole book about the correspondences between the hallmarks of UFO sightings and sightings of the Holy Virgin Mary?
Yes, there's a whole bunch of parallels. The Fatima. The miracles at Fatima, which included light brighter than the sun, which plunged toward the earth, and strange sounds in the sky, music coming from the heavens and whatnot. It would be a UFO sighting if the kids didn't say they saw the Virgin Mary.
So maybe UFOs are just the modern mind's way of attaching some kind of explanation to some experience that's beyond explanation.
Yeah, I personally believe very strongly in UFOs because, well, I see 3 or 4 of them every week. I told that to, airplanes that you don't know the names of. Yeah, I told that to a friend of mine, and he really looked like, oh my God, you really have gone crazy at last. But what I mean is the sky is full of things that I can't identify. I don't know what they are. But not only that, but there are UNFOs too, unidentified non-flying objects. I see them all the time too.
In the garden.
That could be because I had a lot of training in general semantics and I'm not quick to identify things. All my identifications are tentative.
It sounds like George C. Scott and Dr. Strangelove. I'd just like to wait till all the facts are in, sir. Well, do you have is there one or more conspiracies that really appeal to you, that tickle you beyond all fancy? That you know, either are so absurd that they just make you laugh out loud, or so realistic that they might actually have a chance to be true?
Well, there are quite a few that amuse me. What comes to mind right off the top of my head is Lyndon LaRouche has come up with some of the most wonderful conspiracy theories of all. But my favorite, I think, is the little pamphlet